feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Saturday night. It's November 15th, and I've got Kyle Theige here with me. We are recording this right after the Wolves' 123-112 loss to the Denver Nuggets on Saturday night. And yeah, the plan for this episode is just to kind of go back and forth, I think, give some takeaways from not only tonight's game, but the Wolves' pair of games from this weekend, tonight against Denver, but also on Friday night, they played against Sacramento. Kyle, you were here for both of these games. I dressed like James Bond. I'm sure the YouTube audience is noticing. Do you want to explain that, or where do you want to start?
Yeah, elephant in the room. I'm wearing my wedding suit on the pod. So my monthly or my quarterly promotion to go check out our YouTube page, DaneMooreNBA. We also yesterday recorded a really cool podcast that we're going to be dropping on Monday that I think is going to be really high quality for the video audience. So yeah, go check out our YouTube page for a Monday pod. For this one, don't look at me. I don't have a hat on. I, again, have my full wedding suit. It's a long story. Maybe I'll talk about it another time. But cool to be back in town. And it was cool to be back for these two games because it was night and day. It was like what I wore yesterday on the pod versus what I wore today on the pod. And beating up on the Sacramento Kings, they've, as Britt told me in the locker room, you eat a bunch of cupcakes, you get fat. And tonight was the complete opposite. That is not a cupcake. That is a lean steak that the Denver Nuggets have.
Yeah, well, explain what you mean by a cupcake. Maybe let's start.
I mean, I think the energy tonight, again, like just to kind of set the scene, Saturday night, second night of a back-to-back. I don't think Denver had played since Wednesday, so all the excuses were kind of built in. But then Denver doesn't have Cam Johnson, doesn't have Christian Braun, and the Wolves just right from the get-go, Denver throws, a zone at them. But like Denver has played a lot of good teams. Like they've been playing against high-quality opponents the last couple weeks. The Wolves have done the opposite. They've both been successful, but tonight was kind of like this meeting point of, one boxer was sparring against champions and one was sparring against you and I. And I think that kind of played itself out on the court tonight because every time the Nuggets threw a punch, I don't think the Wolves responded with a punch back. And that's kind of why they ended up getting slightly blown out there in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so they've played 5 teams who have a record over 500 thus far this season. The Lakers twice, Denver twice, and what's the fifth one? The Knicks was the fifth team that has a winning record, and the Wolves are 0-5 against them this season. I feel myself every time that I bring this up being like a little hypocritical because 2 years ago when they would play cupcake teams, we would start every one of these being like, all right, you didn't try against the Wizards. Okay, Carl had 62 and you still lost to the Hornets. This team has a history of not taking cupcakes seriously and losing those games. They have taken care of business this year, but I think it would be inappropriate for us to not bring up the fact that when they've played the 5 very good teams or above average teams thus far this season, they're 0-5 thus far. I don't think Denver showed themselves to be levels above the Wolves tonight by any means. I actually thought it was a pretty fun game and competitive mostly throughout. Denver kind of got it to double digits late, but it was a close competitive game. But at the end of the day, I think it's fair to have some concerns about how this Wolves team, maybe not concerns is the right word, but question marks about how this team stacks up against the better teams in the league.
Yeah, however you feel about this weekend now, waking up on Sunday or Monday when you listen to this, it kind of will support how you just feel about this team in general.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because I actually hate the idea, to your point earlier, of like, I think Britt didn't say it like this, but like, hey, you can't really judge this team when they're beating up on bad teams. And it's like, actually, I think you can. Because I think what Chris Finch said tonight is like, you play who's in front of you. And for the most part, they kind of handled, even Friday night against Sacramento in a cup game, it was close for a little bit, but
not cupcake.
Yeah, cupcake. Cup game, but they thoroughly dominated them. I mean, like outside of Russell Westbrook getting that triple double, like it was close for a little bit. But if we would have done a pod after the Friday game, like we normally do, and then after tonight's game, it would have been 2 different pods. But last night would have been, I think they did a lot of good things. They continue to beat up on these teams. Sure, the offense is top 3 or 4 offensive rating in the league. The defense is coming around, and then tonight again, mean, Julius Randle, last night, Jaden said he just wanted to go to bed. But that's because he got kicked and punched all over the place. Tonight, Julius could not wait to go home and go to bed because he had to go against Jokic on the second night of a back-to-back. But
he said he was exhausted in the locker room afterwards.
But what Denver did tonight is something they're going to constantly do. I mean, there was a really cool stat. This Denver team, without two, I guess, starting wings, just brought in other guys. Peyton Watson had a really good game. By the way, might not be a lot of stats on this pod because all the stats went out in the building. So there is no box score.
There's still no box score
as of 11 p.m. on Saturday night. But this is just an interesting thing to talk about what this Nuggets team is, because Wolves Nuggets is a history now. It's a rivalry. These teams do not like each other. But the 25-26 Denver Nuggets are the 5th team in NBA history to have 9 of their 12 first games be double-digit wins. And the other 4 teams, the 24-25 Thunder, they won the finals. The 96-97 Bulls, they won the finals. The 84 Celtics lost the finals. And the 62-63 Celtics won the finals. So despite missing 2 of their starters tonight, this Nuggets team is just a different version of what the Wolves used to kind of beat up on, and they're not really going anywhere. So the next time they play them, probably not going to be in the second night of a back-to-back. Maybe this Timberwolves team will figure some stuff out. But this Nuggets team, as we said in the preseason in October, they're real. Like, this is, to me, the second best team in the whole league. And Minnesota tonight, whether it be the zone, which really gave them fits, the mucking it up, or just the inability to make shots, they're going to have to solve some of that stuff, because to get to where they want to go and to be a 3-time Western Conference champ or Western Conference team that makes the Final Four, you got to beat this Denver team. And they did not have the answers tonight.
You can't spot good teams 12 points. And that's what they did at the beginning of this game. It's 5 minutes into the game. The score is 17-5 Denver. You can't spot Jokic, I think, in particular, 12 points. I do feel like Jokic is like the type of player that adjusts how they're playing kind of based on like what the lead is. Just having watched Denver a lot over the course of time, it's kind of like, all right, we've got this lead. Now we're going to walk you down sort of the rest of the way. Which eventually they did. The Wolves did have a big comeback along the way there, which we'll get to. But the spotting of Denver, those 12 points early was what I was thinking about when we're talking about the lesser opponents versus the winning teams. You do not have that margin for error, obviously against Nikola Jokic, but against, I think, just good teams in general, because the good teams in the league this season and in this NBA that's as talented as ever, that margin isn't there. That's not an indictment of the Wolves. They let that gap begin and happen at the beginning of the game. And I thought a big part of it was the zone. I thought Denver comes out first possession of the game in the zone, and it took the Wolves maybe 4 or 5 possessions to even feel like they had an offensive possession against the zone where they were getting to something that it looked like they were trying to get to, not just like a shot because the clock has wound down. There's a lot of holding. We've talked so much this season about how the spacing looks better, how the ball movement is better. I think the biggest reason for that this season as a whole is because they haven't been holding. A zone naturally kind of forces you. It doesn't force you to do that a little bit, but it makes you think in a little bit more than a normal defense would, which makes your decision-making not quick decision-making. And that's why the offense, like you said, I think they came into this game second or third in offensive rating. They've been a quick decision-making team. Julius Randle has been a quick decision maker. Ant has been quicker this season. I thought I thought the zone flummoxed them right at the beginning. And frankly, that's not okay. That's not okay if you're a contender, right? That shouldn't be something that takes you 5 minutes to sort of figure out. Now they did figure it out.
Right.
And that was 5 minutes into the game. Julius Randle goes to the bench, which is not when Julius Randle normally first subs out of the game. He normally plays the first 9-10 minutes of the game. It's a quick hook. Naz Reid comes into the game. I thought it was really interesting that Naz's presence alone got Denver to come out of that zone. They immediately left the zone once Naz checked in, or at least that's what my notes I wrote down said. And it's not that Naz Reid is a better offensive player than Julius Randle. He's a different type of offensive player. And one archetype of a player that is going to be good against zone. And Naz was really good. He played for 17 straight minutes after checking into the game in the first half and had 17 points in that time. The good version of Naz is a floor spacer, and a quick decision maker. And that kind of affirmed for me what was missing for the Wolves in that first 5 minutes when they fell back by 12 points to Jokic.
Yeah, I was thinking when the zone came out, was this like opponent specific, or was, because I haven't watched all the Denver games coming into this one, but it was also, is this something that they're trying to do a little bit more? Because the one thing, again, the Wolves lose the game, but the one thing that was, if I was Denver when they watch the film tomorrow, their rim protection is horrendous. Like, and again, they were missing some high quality perimeter defenders, but I didn't know if that was partly, again, to slow down Minnesota's really rampant offense, or if it was just to kind of protect Jokic. But either way, as soon as Julius went out, I thought that was fascinating that they immediately got out of the zone. And not to, I don't know if this is a really dumb way to talk about it, but sometimes you play man-to-man defense, there can be three guys defensively that are just chilling, right? Like in a high pick and roll, it's like the three of them are, keeping their eyes on the ball and their man, but they can kind of chill. In a zone, all five guys got to kind of move. And I thought tonight they just didn't do like the basic stuff, because when the zone flummoxed them and they're down 17-5, Julius was holding the ball at the top. The thing that was so valuable and profitable for him, kind of dissecting the defense.
Yeah.
Well, in a zone, that doesn't really work. You got to swing that thing from side to side, get it in the middle, kick back out, find the guy on the baseline. And no one really had great answers for it, by the way, post game. Like, why did the zone flummox you?
Asking everybody.
And no one had a great answer. Maybe it's because they also...
Julius did say it slows down your decision making.
Right. But again, this is why it's like glass half full, glass half empty. It's November 15th. And that zone crushed them. Now, again, we should talk about how they did kind of solve it and get back into the game. They actually were up at the end of 3 quarters. But that's also, again, I always just believe when something can stop a team in their tracks like that, second or third best offense coming in, you just have no way to solve it. Every team in the league is going to throw something at you. Like, that's the whole picking you up 48 minutes, 94 feet. You see other teams do it against Minnesota because they don't have a good lead guard or someone to bring the ball up. I think you're going to see more teams put the Wolves in a little bit of zone. Will they be able to do it as well as Denver? I mean, you put Jokic in the middle of that zone, dude. It is like putting just a tower in the middle of the court. But I would imagine they're going to have to solve this. Now, like, this is something the coaching staff, good teams are going to do this to them because they know that Julius, I mean, the isolation stats that you can kind of see all over Twitter and stuff, like everything is Julius and Ant are killing it in isolation, but you can't really isolate against a zone. I mean, there's creative ways to get your shot off, but that's bad offense. And yeah, I mean, they didn't lose the game in the first quarter. They did actually fight back. I thought that was a spirited comeback. We should talk about the fourth quarter maybe, but it definitely was a wrinkle that this team had not seen through the first 12 games.
And as was Naz playing well,
Yeah,
and so I think that's something worth talking about. It felt like Naz broke through the kind of glass ceiling that he's been facing for the beginning of this year.
It was a big weekend. He had 12 and 12 against the Kings, but I think last night he kind of came up a little bit. Sometimes that sugar rush from a cupcake can get you going, right? But tonight was his best game of the season, albeit in a loss, and he said that after the game too, but he was quite possibly their best player tonight.
Yeah, it stood out to me on Friday after the Kings game when we talked to Naz in there, that he was very open about the fact that he's been struggling this season. But he said that Kings game was the first time, even though the shots weren't falling in that game, he was like, I do feel like this is the first time I kind of felt like I'm being me.
Yeah.
And I logged that in my head last night and was kind of thinking about this Denver matchup and thinking about Naz's history against this Denver team, and had an instinct that this was going to be a big game for Naz. And it proved to be that, which again is important for just like a long-term, like, okay, they got their 6th man of the year guy back or trending back in the right direction. I think he's a really interesting piece specific to the Denver matchup. And that's important because they're going to play Denver 3 more times this year. They potentially could play Denver in the playoffs. And I don't think it was just because Naz was playing well tonight that Finch really leaned on him and leaned on the Julius Naz front court. It was less minutes for Rudy tonight. It was definitely a willingness to lean on the Reid Randle front court. And I think that's a sign of a little bit of a different approach that the Wolves are bringing to the Denver matchup specifically. Rudy is obviously going to bring significantly better defense against Jokic and the Denver offense as a whole. But given that it's Jokic, there's still just going to be a high level of efficiency of that offense, right? Generally speaking, Rudy can't totally deter all of that. So it seems to me in this Denver matchup that Finch is thinking this might be just our offense versus your offense game. And with this Wolves team being a more potent offense than it has been in previous seasons, and frankly being a lesser defense, I think there was some logic to that. But it was different. I think about the conference semifinals 2 years ago, and why did they win that game? It was their defense against Nikola Jokic with Cat on him and Rudy Gobert lurking off of Aaron Gordon, who apparently makes all of his threes now, so you can't really do that anymore. But it just felt like a shift in the matchup and a shift in approach by Finch. Just to Denver in general.
And just to dumb it down again, but to bring up that topic I brought up with you about a week ago, it was another one of those games against a good center that I just thought when Rudy was out there, it just wasn't. I mean, no one could stop Jokic. According to sources, he had a triple-double tonight. Again, we don't know the stats. I think he had 27, 12, and 10 for their 7th straight win for the Nuggets. Again, they're cooking. But yeah, I thought no one could stop him. No one could really slow him down. But he is still their best option in my mind. I mean, I don't know if you disagree with that, Rudy, against Jokic. But then defensively, yeah. But then offensively, it was the classic Rudy thing, right? That the detractors will always go to is like, yeah, he's giving you the defense, but offensively he's hurting you. And which one is he giving you more than he's taking away? But yeah, Naz forced Finch's hand tonight to play him. But I also just thought too, when it was that, as Finch called it post game, like the 2 4s out there, Naz and Julius. I mean, if you truth serum Jokic, he'd be like, I would love that, right? Like I know him and Gobert don't always love each other, but I think he respects him. I don't know. I don't think Jokic was scared at all tonight. If it was Naz or even Jaden or Julius in front of him, he was just going to cook them all and put them right in the basket.
Yeah, but they can't guard Naz and Julius either.
And yeah, that's fair.
Naz and Julius cannot guard Jokic. Right. That's not going to work either. And you're just going to try to play hard. You're going to try to limit the Denver offense to one shot, and that's going to be your plan defensively if Rudy's not off the floor. But Jokic cannot guard Naz Reid in space. He cannot guard Julius. He cannot guard either of those guys in space, hence the zone.
And he can't protect the rim. Like there was multiple times where before Ant got all those free ones at the end, like if Ant could get into the paint, he could then just get to the rim.
All right, Kyle, let's take a little break to talk about the Sunday slate of NFL games. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. I've got 2 picks for Sunday. I do not think that Jordan Love will have multiple passing touchdowns. The last time he had a passing touchdown was on October 26th. I know that because I just cut him for my fantasy team this week. So give me less than 1.5 passing touchdowns for Jordan Love. And then I've liked Travis Etienne of late. Give me more than 14.5 rushing attempts for the Jacksonville back. What do you got?
Justin Jefferson's statement game coming back from last week's debacle, more than 71.5 receiving yards. And then also Drake London, you can do like fantasy points on Prize Picks. So Drake London, more than 16.5 fantasy score between Drake London and Drake May. The Drake's on a Plane fantasy team is off to a hot start this season. So Drake London, more than fantasy points, and Justin Jefferson, more than yards.
There's always something going on over at Prize Picks. As a reminder how this works, to put together a lineup at Prize Picks, all you need to do is put 2 or more picks in your lineup to win. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, go to prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app. Use promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane when you create your account. Yeah, no, I don't know. I want maybe, and for listeners too, to sort of log that, and when we're thinking about the next Denver matchup, when I don't even know when that is, and then just big picture, I just think it's going to be a different approach. It's going to be this is a different matchup than it was 2 years ago. We can reference the 30 times these two teams have played each other. This Wolves team is different than the team was a couple years ago. I don't think they're outclassed by this
Right.
Denver team, but there's just a distinction to be made that this is a different matchup, and it'll feel like even more of a different matchup, when Cam Johnson's healthy and a different, they just have a different roster too. Hardaway had a big game tonight, new pieces.
On the topic of defense, really quick, when Rudy's off the floor, we've talked about that ad nauseum, that the defense was really bad when it was a 4-5 combo of Julius and Naz. But in my brain, I always thought in those lineups, Julius was and is your backup 5. And I'm just curious because this topic was something we've been discussing for a while.
You think of Julius as the 5?
I do.
I think of Naz. I mean, it is.
Well, I mean, maybe it's because I hang out with you too much and you're constantly telling me Naz at the 3, Naz at the 3. So I'm like downshifting rather than upgrading. Right. But I think one topic that hasn't really been addressed, and you had to tweet about it, and then I did the dumb thing where I looked at the mentions, whatever. But like Julius Randle is headed towards the All-Star game right now. He's probably having, I don't know if this is year 12 or year 13. Julius Randle is probably having the best offensive season of his career. Like this team's record in April could determine if he makes like All NBA. Defensively, I just haven't really seen it on a team that has had a lot of guys not play good defense. I thought Julius played his best defensive game tonight, albeit against a 27, 12, and 10. But your comment is that for as good as the offense has been, they need more from the defense. And I think people kind of lost their minds or doing, well, what about this guy? But I just want to be honest, like we do that with the best players. Like we do that with Ant all the time. So I do think it's a fair criticism. Their defense hasn't been struggling because Julius, but there's a lot of screenshot segments where I can show him like that Utah game, there was multiple times where he just kind of stayed at the perimeter, didn't really provide any sort of resistance. So it's not like a knock on Julius, but it is, if we're going to ask Ant to just do even more defensively while also being an All-NBA offensive player, I think Julius is so good that he needs to kind of be in that conversation too. I know that's a little hot button topic, but his defense could be better.
Yes. And I think it's important to there's different buckets of defense, right? I thought Julius fought Jokic.
I thought it was, yes.
That's one part of defense, though. That in that case is like an individual man-to-man type of defense. And I thought he was trying to deny the ball to him in the first half, especially did a good job of that. Fought. Obviously, Julius is physical. When I tweeted it, what I was thinking was, I think that was at halftime I did it. And it seems to me that teams are attacking some of his off-ball defense.
The Ant thing.
Yeah. And which can be even more crucial off-ball defense when you're like the backline rim protector, right? That low man rotating over. And that's been something Julius struggled with some last season too, of just kind of navigating that space and that timing of the rotation of when to get over. And Jokic is as good as it gets at kind of manipulating that. I'm not saying I don't think Julius had like a terrible defensive game, but that's been a bit of a theme, I think, of the season is when they're playing their best defense, Julius Randle is playing better team defense than his sort of mean. You know what I'm saying? I do think he's a good isolation defender, even for a big, even if he gets switched onto a small. But it's in those team defensive concepts. It's in some of those rotations and navigating and being there timely that he's not there. And what I said was the Wolves need more from him defensively to be the title contender version of himself, which is obviously, a high bar. Like they can make the playoffs and he can be an all-star and all these things if Julius Randle's defense is what it's been thus far this season. But if we start talking about stacking over the course of the season and raising what the ceiling is of this team, obviously that's about the defensive side of the floor, and specifically the defense of this team, as we've talked about all season, when Rudy Gobert is off the floor and Julius Randle is almost always on the floor when Rudy Gobert is off there. So it's got to be okay for us to have praised Julius Randle up and down for 3 weeks for me to be able to point at the team defense. Like, look at the clips. I mean, it's just
we did it with Jaden when he had his 30 piece against the Lakers. I think that was the game where Finch is like, I mean, there's no Ant. Jaden gives you 30, and the head coach publicly is like, we need even more. His comments were more defensively. But I think that was just kind of to talk it out because
Yeah.
it is something like I see Jake painting. We talk about all the time. Like the defense is pretty eye opening when it is backdoor cuts or when he's not on the ball. On the ball, yeah, he's a demon just physically. And I thought he banged about as hard tonight with Jokic as anyone. And that's probably why he was so hungry after the game. He was exhausted, but his offense has been great. I just think what you meant is if this team's going to try to do what they did the last 2 years, I mean, I think the same about Ant. And I think the same about Rudy. Like a lot of these guys, the defense has gotten better. And that kind of sums up the whole initial talk about the cupcake stuff is the defensive, I guess, metrics or stats have been better because they're playing bad teams. But to be on this level, I mean, they're not, and it's November, but they're not on the level right now of their opponent that they played tonight. And I think it's going to have to be more from Julius and Ant on the defensive end.
Yeah. And the question with that is about, those guys do have big offensive loads, right? They carry this offense from a usage standpoint. I think for both Ant and Julius, their offensive style, being downhill players seeking contact, it is a more physically tasking, right, type of offense than a spot up shooter would be, an elite spot up shooter would be. So I do think they will come to that realization collectively as a group that, yes, we need a lot from Ant and Julius offensively, but we also, to be a good defensive team, need a lot from them on the other side of the floor. We talked up and down about the need for perimeter defense on this team now that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is gone. Yeah. I actually think Ant had a pretty good weekend of that, really being engaged defensively on the perimeter, taking the point of attack job. But it is one of those, how high is the ceiling of this Timberwolves team? The questions is how good of defenders can Ant and Julius be while being two of the most effective offensive players in the league as well? It's an open question.
So on the topic of Ant and Julius, we still don't have a box score. This is going to make this conversation really tough.
I do have the point totals.
But so you're talking about the offensive load that those two guys have on them. Fourth quarter, because I had written this all down. So this is just based off my notes. Fourth quarter, they're up 1 to start the fourth quarter. And Finch doesn't have Ant or Julius on the court. And I think 3 minutes into the fourth, they might have been tied, but then the Nuggets went on an 18-6 run. And now, again, I don't know what time I think Julius might have subbed in before Ant did. But that fourth quarter, talking about tonight's game, I kind of want to talk about that a little more because do you remember, I think it was the fourth quarter where they got 4 straight turnovers. Remember, it was really sloppy from Denver, but Minnesota couldn't capitalize. They're losing. They ended up losing on the night, the non-Jokic minutes, which basically you don't even need a box score for that one. Like if you lose the non-Jokic minutes, you're probably losing that game. But they didn't capitalize on those 4 turnovers, and then they kind of got run out of the building. But just in general, because I don't know if that's like a thing that he didn't do it last night. I mean, Julius started the fourth quarter out there with Naz. But can this team afford against good teams to ever have both those guys on the bench? Because my hot take late Saturday night in the suit is no. But I mean, you maybe have to think on it a little bit more. But like, I just didn't. They fought for 3 minutes, and then Denver figured it out, and they just sprinted by Minnesota, and that's when they lost the game. That 18-6 run in the fourth quarter. But I just don't like. I'm not comfortable when both of those guys are sitting. Now, I'm sure Finch would tell me to go bleep myself because it's hard to find times to not give them both rest. But I mean, the rotation out there was like Jalen Clark, Mike Conley, Jaden, Naz, and maybe Dante or something. But
start of the fourth quarter, Gobert, Reid, McDaniels, DiVincenzo, Conley.
That moment is when I just, again, for the 9th time this weekend, I was like, I just think they missed Theige. Because I think they just needed more offensive spark against a team that had no rim protection. Terrence would have, because he had 10 healthy toes, he would have probably gotten to the rim pretty easily. But just big picture, something to maybe either put a pin in or you have a thought on it now. But I don't love for now with the point guard position still being a question mark. Rob had a moment or two. He also blew a fast break layup. And Mike had a moment or two. Those got hounded a little bit defensively. I feel comfortable having one of those guys out there for all 48 minutes.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and that's possible to do. They often do that. I do think it would be valuable to be able to function without both of them
No,
on the floor for like a period of
This
time.
is a hindsight take for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I don't think it's wrong. But I think with a Gobert, Reid, McDaniels, DiVincenzo, and Conley lineup there, that you can get to enough offensively to. That's not your closing lineup. You know, if that's 4 or 5 minutes at the beginning of the second quarter or beginning of the fourth quarter, like. I think this team, especially, I mean, I'm looking at McDaniels. That's the name that's popping on me there, and I feel like given who Jaden has been offensively this year, that's an isolation scorer you have out there. You have DiVincenzo and Reid as elite shooters spacing the floor around Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert, who can, get you into offense through pick and roll. I don't think that should totally kill your offense and have led to an 18-6 run, but it did. So maybe the answer is at this point in the season, they need one of Ant or Julius on the floor at all times. But it goes kind of back to the ceiling thing, right? Of like reaching, stacking for something more than that. I like that you brought up Shannon and Dillingham there, because if we were getting more of a 90th percentile outcome of the first month of Terrence Shannon Jr.'s season or Rob Dillingham's season, then one of those guys are on the floor out there, maybe instead of Mike Conley. And there's your Shannon offensive spark and transition, or Rob's creating for himself and for others offensively. And you got more juice in that sort of way. As of right now, mid-November, TJ, who's hurt, obviously, and Rob, who's confined to a very small role, they don't feel like a button you can push and expect to get that out of at this time of the year.
Yeah, and you were highlighting Jaden. I think he's just had a great season. Like not just against Cupcakes. Like he had some good performances, but his worst performances of the season have come against higher quality opponents. Like he wasn't good against the Knicks. He wasn't good in that first Lakers game. The second Lakers game, he had 30, but that's with no Ant. And again, tonight, it's like, I think Rudy, I'm just making this up at this point, but I think he had 4 points. So that 5-man lineup, maybe that's something that Finch will watch the tape tomorrow and they'll do a film session. Like I messed that up. I should have never gone that long without Ant or Julius out there. But there are moments this weekend, and there have been moments since TJ went out. And by the way, like elephant in the room, Terrence hasn't been good all season. But I was thinking about how last night Naz said that thing about the bench needs to have more energy, and I got to lead that, and he did it tonight. But there are moments where I'm like, I promoted this team as one of the deepest teams in the league, and then there's nights where I'm like, oh my God, they have 5 guys that can play. And tonight was one of those nights. Maybe it's the second night of a back-to-back and all those excuses, but they needed more from some of those other guys tonight. And to kind of circle it all the way back, I mean, Dante shot poorly. He only finished with 11 points. No idea what his box score was or his shot chart was, but him and Mike and Rob, I think they kind of glossed over these last couple of weeks and frosted over as a cupcake, not needing a point guard. And now the term is lead guard. Tonight felt like one of those nights again where it would have been nice to have an answer at point guard, especially for those first 4, 5, 6 minutes in the fourth quarter.
In the first 5, 6 minutes of the game.
Yes.
Right against the zone.
Yeah,
like, so you didn't be holding the ball out there. Like it would have helped to have Mike Conley out there to start the game, or even Rob Dillingham, you know, like a little bit more of that traditional pick the defense apart type of player out there. Let's grab a break and we'll come back. I want to talk about Ant a little bit. Today's show is brought to you by Storyworth Memoirs, and we are excited to have Storyworth back as a holiday season gift option for your parents or loved ones this year. I think if you're around my age, this is a great gift to give your parents. The idea behind Storyworth is uncovering stories you didn't know about your loved one. How it works, each week, Storyworth emails a loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to choose. Questions like, what are your favorite toys as a child? What are you most proud of? And all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story. After a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. The photos are printed in color, and it will be a treasure your loved one and you will be able to share and revisit for generations. Customers really do love Storyworth. They've printed over 1 million books and preserved 35 million family stories since their founding 13 years ago. They also have 48,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. I use Storyworth, and I think you should too. Give your loved ones a unique keepsake you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth Memoirs. Right now, save $10 or more during their holiday sale when you go to storyworth.com/DaneMoore. That's storyworth.com/DaneMoore to save $10 or more on your order. This show is also sponsored by BetterHelp, and this November, BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on friends, reconnect with loved ones, and remind the people in your life that you are there. Just as it can take a little courage to send that message or grab coffee with someone on your team you haven't seen in a while, reaching out for therapy can feel difficult too, but it's worth it. And it's almost always something that leaves people wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? We know the holiday season isn't easy for everyone, and it's important to stay connected during this time. We're healthier when we have community and when we have support. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, having served over 5 million people globally. And it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/DaneMoore. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DaneMoore. All right, we're back with Kyle Theige. And Kyle, let's talk about Ant. This was his first bad game of the season thus far. I wouldn't count the Knicks game as a bad game, given that it was his first game back from injury after having missed some time. But he really struggled with his shot. It was really inefficient shooting night. Again, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Asking him after the game in the locker room about what it was, what led to this, and it was just he didn't point to anything specific other than, I just need to be making these shots. Like, this team needs me to be making shots in these situations. And I was like, did it feel like the zone or their defense was pushing you into a different shot selection, those sort of things? Like, yeah, but I need to be making those shots. And that's just that. I do think that is I know that seems like that's a very Ant answer, a very simplistic answer, but is also very true. Like, this team does need Anthony Edwards to be playing at a very high level to be this offense that we've come to know them as. Like, yes, they played offense well in a handful of the games when Ant was out. But when you talk about going against a Denver or some of these better teams, there isn't, like, as good as the offense is, he's still just like the engine, you know, and he's the break glass in case of emergency. And there was just some of these times where you could see him trying to have one of those boomlets, and it wasn't there. And it's going to happen, over the course of the season. I personally think some of it did have to do with the shot selection that he was taking, and that the zone maybe pushed him into, in the way that they kind of scripted their defense to go against him. That's on him to, however he needs to overcome it. He has to overcome for them, I think, to be able to be beating, teams that have MVP candidates on them. He needs to be able to match a Nikola Jokic blow for blow, a Shea, whatever, down the line. And this was the first time in a season that I've been, frankly, like, really impressed by Ant's offense and reading the game. It wasn't there tonight, and I think part of it was just not hitting shots, but not hitting shots because hitting shots is what gets him in a rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, in the last two nights when the box score stopped working tonight, I think he was 1 for 12 from 3 in the last 24 hours. And I mean before that, he was 5 for 9, 5 for 10, 7 for 12. Like, there's a chance. Like, if you just told me, like, hey, I found out that the whole team was hungover, that might just be the analysis of the game, right? Like, I know we talked about the cupcake schedule in the zone, but between him and, I guess we can't see what Dante shot, but I know it's probably 1 for 5, 1 for 6 from 3. Yeah, so if those two guys give you 1 for 11, you're probably just not winning a lot of those games anyway. So there is a chance. I don't want to sugarcoat a loss against a team that you're going to have to figure out the answers to those tests down the road. But there's also a chance that everyone just played bad tonight. And if him being the head of the snake and coming into this, and Knicks game aside, when he was probably just getting his legs underneath him a little bit, Knicks are also a really good team and they defended him well, but he has been in these last 4 games, like he has been so good. And even last night, I mean, we're focused so much on the game we just watched, but I do at least want to highlight or acknowledge that the Kings game I thought he was phenomenal. And he didn't even really get too much into playmake mode. I think he only had 4 assists, but he did have those 2 steals. He got to the line 12 times. He did drop 30, but he has become, and I would imagine some of this credit goes to Julius now that he feels so confident having a running mate that is looking for him, but that he can also trust will be able to carry that load you talked about for a little bit so he doesn't have to. But if we'd have done a pod last night, it would have been all shooting stars and rainbows for Anthony Edwards. Tonight kind of fell off a little bit, but overall, the season was so weird, right? He had to give you 41 in game 1 just to survive Portland. Then he gets hurt. But since he's come back, he's been as good as in that mid-range stuff that I was super overreacting to in October, just to be honest with you. I think that has opened up. He's not just posting guys up and using his back instead of his ass. Like that stuff is taken way out of context. My bad. But that just little ability to hit those mid-range shots or, get his opponent in that situation, you can see the fear of God in them. Is like, is he going to step back on me now and hit a 3? Or is he going to take one power step and get to the rim? So bad game tonight. Everyone gave bad answers in the post-game locker room, by the way. Like no box score, plus everyone just being like, yeah, we played bad. We got to make shots. But he was ahead of it. And tonight, his inability to stretch the floor, I think it just kind of nuked everyone around him.
I want you mentioned DiVincenzo in there, and it got me thinking about how in that Sacramento game, Dante played very well, and he was kind of this potential 4th offensive spark where you have Julius and Jaden this season as your 3 primary scorers, right? And relatively bankable from all 3 of them night to night. It does feel like they need a 4th guy to kind of reach like a higher offensive level. And I think in the Sacramento game, that was Dante. Tonight, it was Naz. For the first time, he kind of presented that. But I'm looking at that, right? Of as good as Julius and Ant and Jaden have been offensively, it does feel to me like they need a 4th guy and to be giving them real offensive juice. What Naz gave them in the first half, what Dante has given them with 3-point, barrages in numerous games this season. I don't know how many games they can win if they don't get any of that. If both Dante and Naz don't give them that 4th offensive weapon juice. The good news is they have 2 of them, right? Like I don't think to win, Naz, Ant, and Julius have to play well, that Ant, Julius, and Jaden need to play well along with both Naz and Dante. But I do think you need one of them. And I think fortunately, Dante's been that in about half the games this season, maybe a little bit more. Naz is probably maybe the second time they've really given that to him. It does open up optimism for me about this group in the idea that I don't think it's ridiculous to project that night to night, one of Dante DiVincenzo or Naz Reid will give you a highly impactful offensive game. But yeah, I'm just going to be thinking about that 4th offensive weapon night to night.
Can I just go off brand and be a little bit of a wet blanket?
Yeah.
Because I think that's actually fascinating. And I thought we were going to start talking about that a month from now. And it does kind of tie into a funny anecdote that our guest on Monday had about what they're already kind of prepping for. But to me, this idea of who can be the 4th banana on a given night. How many guys would you even throw into that mix that can do it?
Yeah.
Because this comes back to, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer as they're 8-5 and like there's a long season left, but I am, since the next time I'm here will probably be in, a month from now, I am just keeping one eye on like the roster, because Jalen Clark is never going to give you an offensive explosion. And Rob Dillingham at this point is never going to give you an offensive explosion. And Mike Conley, so like to your point about who can be that 4th offensive punch, well, you don't have many lottery tickets in your hand, right? You're just hoping that
2 good options in Naz and Dante,
for sure.
But then, yeah, what is it beyond that?
The Rudy stuff right now, and it's not fair, but it is honest. It's like, well, his lottery ticket is only going to be called if they're playing against a bad team. or a bad opponent. And like, if it's a good team, you're probably not going to get that offensive 22 and 18. So it is just something we kind of have forgotten in my mind about how questionable the point guard position was. That felt like a conversation we had in October, and then it went away because offensively they have just leaned into the lead guard concept, and Dante has been really good playing alongside Ant, and Dante's been one of the hottest shooters in the league in the last 2 weeks. But I think we're going to cycle back to that a couple of times of they need some sort of point guard to emerge organically, or Matt Lloyd and Tim Conley, those guys are going to have to figure that out in the next couple of months, because I still think that's a glaring hole that we just kind of stopped talking about for a little bit.
What is this hypothetical point guard play like?
That's a great question. I wasn't ready for that. I just wanted to give you my take.
I mean, I don't know what I'm saying. Is it more of a game manager quarterback? Is it more of like a spark plug scorer? I
think I might just be and this is not the answer to the question that I just gave you, but I think they just missed Theige. Because like I think the ideal, I mean, dude, the gas that was getting pumped into him.
But this is what I don't like about the point guard conversation is when we say they need a point guard, and then our answer is
no, that's fair.
Not
that's
a point
fair.
guard. You know what I'm saying?
It's late. It's like this is choking me a little bit around the neck.
Not just you. I mean, but me too. I'm thinking about these things too, and I find my answers to be like, okay, yeah, they needed more point guard play. Okay, the things I point to are okay. It's Ant is a primary creator. Julius is a primary creator. This optimal version of Terrence Shannon Jr. is that, but none of those guys are. That's why I'm asking.
No,
like, they're not
a
point like what. When you are saying, I think Tim Conley and Matt Lloyd might get to the point of needing a point guard, are we talking about a little 6'1" guy, or are we talking about a lead guard?
Yeah,
no. You know, I don't know if I know what the answer is to that. But to be fair, I'm not the one saying, or haven't been the one saying that I think this team needs point guard play. That is not on the top of my list. Obviously,
that's nice. Fair. I guess I'm just trying to, and again, I'm playing the hindsight card because Dante finished with 11 points tonight, but for all intents and purposes, he was not good.
Nor a point guard.
Right. That's fair. But I guess take the positions away from it. It's like during this stretch of cupcake games where the offense has skyrocketed up the rankings, he's been awesome. Other guys have been awesome too. But if he's bad, like I'm not saying he's the linchpin to all this working, and this is just me cooking up takes for next month. But like, if he's bad, I just think pretty much on a night-to-night basis right now, Mike and Rob have been bad. So maybe I put you in the wrong direction, but just big picture, it's like when Dante's really good, Finch can just play him a bunch of minutes. But when Dante's not hitting shots, it's like they don't really have another option out there, and it just limits the amount of guys that can be that fourth scorer. So I didn't really think that one out well. I'll craft it again over the week, but it is a concern of mine because we're trying to find these fourth guys. And it's like right now, if it's not Rudy and it's not any of the traditional point guards, it's like you just basically need Naz.
I think the answer is Rob. I think Rob is the one. I mean, that we're talking because we went through him. It's not Mike Conley. He doesn't have offensive juice to be
not Jalen Clark.
We're talking about. It's not Jalen Clark. That's not him. That's neither of their games. It's not Rudy Gobert. That's not his game. Terrence Shannon Jr. is hurt right now. That is, I think, what you are craving is an optimized version, or maybe a 24-year-old Rob Dillingham.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And Rob Dillingham's not 24 right now. He's also being given a very small role that I'm not even sure allows him enough air to have a good game. I was sitting next to Britt during the game, and I said, "How long do you think it'll be until the first really good Rob game?" Because that'll happen, obviously it's gonna happen at some point. He had two really good games last season. He won against Boston and one against Houston. But I don't know if it's fair to say he's due for that, or the expectation is for that to come, given how small the role is. But to go along the lines of your thought, I think the answer to what you are craving lies within, and it is the best answer for that is Rob Dillingham. Now the question is, what's the opportunity cost of pursuing that? I think personally, I think they're all right with the creators they have. I don't think you should need a point guard to be able to diagnose that they're in a 2-3 zone and what you need to be able to do against that. I don't think would have Mike Conley been able to help with that? Sure. But I think Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, that's on them. Like that's the role on this team. You're being given the ball in your hands to be lead guards, primary creators, and set up the offense. I think that's the best way to get this. And the other option is Rob Dillingham, within your roster. And then there's this third mystery bag, which is trading for a point guard,
right?
Which that literally comes with a cost of giving up something to get it. So you
know where I think that came from? That was one of my worst segments, but it was fun to talk it out.
No, I think that was good.
I think it came from watching Dennis Schroeder play last night, because that was like off the bench, 14, 6, and 6. Could do a little bit of like, I can be an because when he was on the court, he went at Rob, which a lot of guys do, and Rob fights his tail off, but he gave you a little bit of the offense, and he gave you a little bit of like the get guys in the right spots. And again, I'm not saying trade for Dennis Schroeder, but I might be biased in just watching him come off the bench last night and be a steady force at all these different topics. And again, one bad night of shooting for Dante on what has been a really good season. But that just stuck out in my brain of like, when Dante was bad tonight, all of a sudden, any person you put next to Ant was a net negative.
Schroeder's not a bad futuristic Rob Dillingham comp.
No, that would be no. I mean, Dennis Schroeder is kind of probably a tough hang at times, and he's always in the mix. But he's also he's not going to make the Hall of Fame. But he is like a very, very good basketball player, both domestically and internationally. But I just liked watching him play last night again. And there's not many guys on the Kings that I like watching play.
Well, I think by bringing up Schroeder and me bringing up Rob as being an answer here, we're kind of saying similar things.
Yeah.
Of that feels like what this team is missing in the type of player who has more traditional point guard skills and can give you juice through that. Rob has not. I get why Finch has not just opened it up and been like, here's 20 minutes for Rob either. I don't think he's acquitted himself great in the minutes that he's played thus far this season. It seems unlikely that if Monday against Dallas, Finch just made a change to the rotation and Rob was to be given 20 plus minutes to play. It seems like a low likelihood proposition that all of a sudden you would get a lot more from him. So I don't know. I think some of this is a waiting game, and hopefully in time, hopefully over the course of this season, Rob is able to give you some of those things. But I think when you're talking about now and you're talking about contending, you need to, I don't know, you need to find the answers within. And until that can be Rob, I'm not going to be making they just need another point guard, because I don't. That's a lot easier said than done. I mean, we could critique the offseason. Maybe they should have put together a roster that had another one of those or something like that. But then Rob's not playing at all if they go sign Malcolm Brogdon or whatever, So yeah, it's a real thing. You're bringing up a real thing. I do think it's a nuanced deal, given how good Ant has been. We're not having this conversation right now if Ant makes 40% of his threes tonight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's the pitfall of doing any sort of post-game pod, right? It's like, if they, to Ant's point, he actually just made a smart answer. Like, if they would have made more shots, we probably would have had a different podcast out. I was just, again, like, I think we've kind of beaten.
I think a lot of people agree. I think most people listening to this segment right now are on your side of things.
I don't even know if I'm on my side on this thing right now, but I don't, again, for the 9th time, we don't have a box score. So I have no idea how many minutes people played. But like last night, Jalen Clark played 22 minutes and Rob played 9. And I'm not going back to the same Rob Dillingham conversation. I just, now you do have, as you look at the schedule to kind of, as you slow down the pod for the weekend, like look ahead, they have a lot more of those cupcakes coming up. Like they're probably going to fatten themselves up again and find some new things. I mean, I think between now and like December 20th, I know the NBA Cup is mixed into there somehow, but they do play a lot of bad teams again. And I would hope that whether they get Terrence back, I think Rob,
maybe you get something from Rob in those games.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rob he did play 2 stints tonight, and he kind of gave you the Rob Dillingham experience. Like, I think he hit his first 3 of the season. He had that really cool steal on the sideline.
And then
good hands. And then he blew a fast break layup. And it's like, he can't do that. Like at some point, you kind of need to stick a fork in it and build from there. And yeah, I'll be excited to see him come up against the Mavericks on Monday and the Wizards on Wednesday and see if you can get a little spark for him. But maybe that was all just a bunch of nonsense. And if Ant would have made 3 threes tonight, this would have been, because again, to start that fourth quarter where it really fell apart 3 minutes in, they were up 1. And I think this is not, I don't care about like moral victories, but after that zone flummoxed them and after it looked like the Nuggets were going to stomp them, they did like fight back. I think they at one point had like a 7-point lead. So they found some stuff that worked, but at the end of the day, I mean, that Nuggets team, I know how much you love OKC, but that Nuggets team, that Nuggets team is nasty, and they have a lot of size. And tonight, you know, the Peyton Watson thing was kind of the backup for a Cam Johnson or a Christian Braun, and he gave Ant fits, he gave Jaden fits. So split, that's kind of, I think, statistically in the league right now, these teams that have back-to-backs, you're just trying to get out of there 50-50, 1 win, 1 loss. But
they were exhausted in the locker room.
Yeah. And like to a nugget about this Nuggets game, the Nuggets played with a lot of pace of when they would get the rebound, Jokic was running.
Yeah.
Like he was his own horse out there, and they were making an intention to make Minnesota run back. And yeah, every guy in that locker room gave really shitty answers post-game because I think they just wanted to all do what Jaden did last night and just go home.
Right. Is there anything else from this game or from this weekend you want to hit before we wrap it up?
Nope. Big fan of all the Timberwolves content on TikTok right now. We'll talk about that maybe down the road. Not team specific, just people that are on TikTok making good videos. No, it was great. It was cool to be back. I had an opportunity to do something really cool with the team earlier today. Always love hanging out with you. Staying at your place, great air mattress. So it's a fascinating situation because you can win 4 or 5 games and you can be third in the league in offense, and then you get punched in the mouth once, and everyone kind of wakes up the next day with a bad taste in their mouth. At least from the fan side, like I'll be curious to see what they think when they wake up tomorrow, because as Britt kind of said, like when the Nuggets punched tonight, the Wolves just didn't punch back. And maybe that's because they were exhausted, whatever. But at some point, this is a new version of the Denver Nuggets. Just like you said, this is a new version of the Timberwolves.
It's a new version of the matchup for sure.
Yeah.
Because they're both different.
And it's a new test, and they're gonna have to find new answers.
Yeah. No, I think that's I think it's a good way to put it. I think this one might sting a little bit.
Those two teams hate each other. Like, I mean, in the nicest way possible, but like they really do get up for one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I love watching the Minnesota Timberwolves and Denver Nuggets play against each other. You know, I mean, it's circled, right? You know, and on every one of these matchups, I say is going to sting a little bit because I can put myself in the end of March and we're looking at the standings and Denver's 2 games ahead of the Wolves, and it's like, you know, that one back in mid-November, like they had that, you know, and those, I think it is fair to say that these games count more, right? I mean, because it would be a loss for Denver too, not just a win. And
the next time they play, to your question earlier, Christmas.
Oh,
so that'll probably be circled too. And again, if you kind of look at the schedule, there's that weird gap between December 8th and the 17th where the NBA Cup will fill in some stuff. But, you know, circle that on both calendars, right? Because again, like the Wolves will go try to figure some stuff out against the Dallases, the Sacramentos, the Washingtons. But again, on a national stage on Christmas Day, they're going to have to play a team that's probably going to be really healthy. And will they have some of those answers that flummox them tonight?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle the rest of this week, the rest of this homestand. Monday, Dallas; Wednesday, you know, Washington. If they continue to take care of business against these lesser teams, I think you're still very much moving in the right direction to have a really good record going into Thanksgiving. And you know, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. And thus far this season, the Wolves have taken care of business against the teams that they should take care of business against, and against the top teams, the winning teams. They haven't done that yet, but the next 2 are lesser teams. And I think I do think there can be power in those games of they allow you to kind of right the ship and find a new rhythm. And frankly, I would expect the Wolves to do that on Monday and Wednesday. And now you're going into next weekend again against more elevated competition in the following week. Thanksgiving week, you got both Oklahoma City and Boston. Yeah, I think it's an important week to get that, to catch that rhythm, right? That's all you can do at this point. We can point out that they lost and X, Y, and Z. This team isn't playing poorly. They just need to find a higher level against higher level teams.
A lot of people are probably thinking that this is going to end. I'm actually going to make you do extra time really quick because there's one topic that we didn't bring up. It is crazy how flummoxed I am against my own zone defense of not being able to see the stats from tonight's game. But there is a new tab. I think the ESPN box scores for NBA got fixed, by the way. That was either me or Tim Legler, probably Tim Legler. But there is a new tab on the standings. And we should talk about that really quick because they kicked the Kings' ass last night in another cup game.
Yeah.
And being in that locker room last night, very different mood. But the coach said it post-game or pre-game. The players have all said it. They really do want to win this NBA Cup. And I think they have the highest point differential through their first 2 games. So again, we don't have to do 10 minutes on the Cup, but they're 2-0 in the Cup. They got a couple cupcakes this week. And then I think they go to Phoenix for their next Cup game.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about the Cup, not only is that these teams are trying. I mean, Leonard Miller was taking 3-point differential shots last night at the end of the game, but is that it does give you another litmus test of playoff style basketball in November or December. So I would imagine Phoenix, when they play in this Cup game, both teams trying to advance, is going to pressure the hell out of Minnesota. They have a lot of good defenders, but I don't want to gloss over the fact of, yes, they stumbled tonight, but last night was a really fun Cup game. Yep. The court was worse, in my opinion, live rather than on TV. But the Minnesota Timberwolves, despite not having any answers for Nikola Jokic, are 2-0 in the NBA Cup in Group A. And I think if they can just, beat the Suns, they're going to have a real good chance to be in that kind of weird semi-final thing to qualify. So a lot of us want to go to Vegas in December, Dane. And I want to bring that up really quick.
No, I do agree with the more like a playoff atmosphere, and covering a team that has gone to the conference finals 2 years in a row is obviously different than covering some of the teams we covered earlier in our careers. And in those earlier years, it was just about how is the team playing. Now with this team, these are the most interesting games, the ones against a good team like Denver, or the Cup games where there's a little bit more on the line. Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out all season, right? Is when this team is operating at its highest level, how good is that?
Mm-hmm.
And you get the best indication of that when the stakes are higher. And still not in the boat of the Cup makes it the highest of stakes, but it's more. It's more, and it makes, I do think it makes for the games to be more meaningful, which makes for the analysis or what we can take from them to be a little bit more true. Like I learned more from that Kings game the other night than I did against the games against Charlotte and Brooklyn the week before that. So yeah, but that's what I'm looking at in general with the Cup. Is I'm excited to see the team both teams push to play at a higher level. And what does that higher level look like?
And that might be, now I'm making excuses for a bunch of millionaire professional athletes. That might be why those guys came out tonight a little tired, because it was 121-102 last night, and Ant was driving to the rim with 101 left on the clock. That was a spirited effort last night because they do want to advance. They do want a high point differential, and the coach said so himself after the game, but might have been one of the reasons that they kind of stumbled tonight. But yeah, fun weekend overall. It's been great weather. And if you haven't checked out a Timberwolves game yet, I highly recommend doing it. But for the most part, they're playing high-level basketball. And even on nights like tonight when they lose, I'm always coming away fascinated by those games, because now there's film out there for other 29 teams or 28 teams to be like, this is how you beat them.
Right.
And I think being in the locker room, especially last night, wins are obviously more enjoyable. But this team does, feel like they have high expectations for themselves. And it'll be curious to see, because there are some teams right now in the league that are just on another hemisphere. And you don't have to beat them in November, but you're going to have to solve.
You got to be building yourself up.
I mean, the Finch stacking skills, you got to start to stack tools in your tool chest that you're going to be able to pull out against OKC and against Denver and maybe even Houston or the Lakers. So appreciate you having me in town all weekend. And I'm sure the next time I'll be back, there'll be 6 feet of snow on the ground.
No, it was a blast. I had a fun weekend at Target Center.
Awesome.
But I did both the games. It's good to have basketball back, and and it's it's always interesting to see where this team is moving. And yeah, like I said, I love watching the Wolves and Nuggets play against each other. I thought this was fun tonight. We'll see what goes from there. Thank you for coming out here this weekend. I guess we'll call it a mystery guest. We did record a pod with a guest the other day, and that will be coming out on Monday morning. We're editing it a little bit differently, so we're still putting that together, and and that will be coming out on Monday as well. And then after that, what we're going to do is Chris and I are going to come here after the Dallas game and do another one of these immediate reaction pods, just kind of gamer pod off of the Wolves Mavs game. So that's what's coming up next on the show. Until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing.